Welcome to Echoes of Faith, the podcast that brings you closer to the heart of Faith Baptist Church in Taylors, South Carolina. I'm your host, Caleb Phelps, and each week we'll dive into the vibrant life of our church, exploring the ministries, events, and philosophies that define us from God's Word. Join us as we celebrate the ways God is working through Faith Baptist Church to impact lives and spread His message. Let's get started on our journey together. Well, good afternoon. I'm so glad you could jump on here with us for just a moment as we have a chance to look forward to an upcoming event that our church family has been announcing now for some time. In fact, this Sunday will be the official registration day for our couples retreat. For the last month and a half, we've been announcing our couples retreat to our church family, and longer than that, it's been on our all-church wall calendar for folks to be able to anticipate and excitedly prepare for. There's been a brochure that's been handed out here recently that looks like this one for our couples retreat, and as we've been looking into that couples retreat, we have announced that our speaker for that is Pastor Matt Fagan. And to that end, I've invited Pastor Matt Fagan to join me today so you guys could get a chance to learn more about him, his ministry that he's currently involved in, and some of the things that he'll be sharing with us while he's at our couples retreat. For those that don't know, our couples retreat is coming up on September 27th and the 28th. It's the end of this September month, just as around the corner. We are thankful to be able to host that at the Wilds North Carolina, in Brevard, North Carolina. But this retreat will be put on by our church. And we're greatly looking forward to what God will do through that, again, on September 27th to 28th. But the purpose today is for you to get a chance to know and meet Pastor Matt Fagan. So I'm going to put Pastor Fagan on here. And Pastor Fagan, if you could just introduce yourself and your ministry to our folks so they can get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. Thank you, Pastor Phelps. It's great to be able to have this privilege to be able to introduce ourselves. My wife, Amy, and I are really looking forward to being with you folks at the couples retreat. So I pastor in Windham, New Hampshire. If you're wondering where that is, we're about 30 miles north of Boston. So on a good day, I can make it to Boston in 30 minutes. On a work day, it's about 2 hours. But we've been pastoring here I've been the pastor here for 23 years this fall. We actually, my wife, Amy, and I moved up here. We were in Greenville for a while doing seminary work, and then moved up here in 2001 and started the church. And so we've been here that whole time and seen the Lord do some great things here in New England, beautiful New England. And so we have been looking forward to this opportunity to be able to come and spend some time with you, just talking about marriage, something we know that God desires to bring Him glory. And so we're excited to share some things that the Lord has taught us and minister to you folks there.
Now, can you just tell us a little more, even on that church planning side, before we get into the couples retreat? What was one of the first things that kind of sparked your interest in church planning as you went up to New Hampshire?
Yeah, so I actually was raised in a church where the man had come to our area. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, that area. A man had come to our area and started a church. And my parents were in a church, but it wasn't a great situation. And when I was in elementary school, I remember changing churches, going to meet in this other church that was meeting in a gymnasium. And I look back on that, and the Lord used that man and that experience to just change the whole trajectory of my life. And I thought, if the Lord would use me in a similar way to start a church somewhere where there's a need, and to be able to reach just one family or even one young man, my life would be well spent. So we started praying about that after I met my wife, Amy, in college. I shared that with her that, I really would desire to go into church planting. We actually looked at a couple of different places. We looked at Northern California, which was very much like Colorado. It was the West. It was the Whitecap Sierras instead of the Rockies. But my personality was different. I don't think I was a good fit for California. But I'd spent some time in New England. Actually with Pastor Caleb Phelps' father, Chuck Phelps, who was my youth pastor in high school. And I came up and did an internship with him in the New England area, the Concord area, and just getting to know the needs of New England and the people of New England. New Englanders can be a little cold and stodgy. And I thought, hey, that's me. I can identify with those people. So I said, I think that's where the Lord, that would be a natural bent to my personality. And so the Lord kind of opened that door, and we sensed the need here, got some counsel from some area pastors, and started the church, like I said, 23 years ago.
Well, you don't need to remind our people how old I was when you met me, because they don't need to be reminded of how young I still am. But
Very young.
yeah, one of the things that it's really amazing. First of all, that you've been able to plant a church and work there so faithfully for 23 years in a area of the country that many people outside of it, even someone I know, I grew up in New England, but many people don't think of New England as somewhere with a spiritual bent. But historically, it has, and there is
Absolutely.
still some lights there in that area.
Yeah.
Now, as a pastor, this is a pretty important topic we've asked you to come speak on, and one that no doubt you have spoken on often to your own church family, and that is the matter of marriage and couples serving God together. And even in your testimony of church planning, you talk about your wife and you together being a team in that church planning effort. What's one of the big passions you have, even just coming to a couples conference and preaching to families on the importance of the marriage and how you can serve together as a couple?
Yeah. I think the thing that really helps me in this kind of thing, a lot of times when people come to a marriage conference, something like that, they're looking for, okay, give me the list, give me these 5 things, my marriage will be great, give me these little tools or tips or whatever. And those are fine. I understand you need to dial in on some of those things. But what I've found over the years as a pastor is we just forget the basic things about marriage. So, for instance, in our first session together, we're just gonna talk about why did God make marriage, and how does it fulfill that purpose? How am I a part of God's big purpose for this?
Mhm.
And you may think, well, that sounds kind of esoteric and theoretical, but I'm amazed at how immensely practical it is. And whenever I deal with couples in marriage counseling, or I'm actually premarital counseling a couple right now, I'm doing a wedding in 2 weeks right before I come to the seminar there. Yeah, I'm just reminded again of just some very basic things that help keep us on target. And if people can just keep these things in mind in certain stages of life and marriage, it helps it run so much more smoothly and really honors God the ways God intends.
Mhm.
And so that's really what drives me is let's not get too technical about marriage. Let's keep the big things in place and then just understand how they kind of play themselves out.
Mm-hmm. And that, you said, is session one of your time together
Yes.
with us. We've asked you to come and speak. It's a Friday, Saturday conference, and you'll have 4 different session times that we'll be doing. Maybe you can talk us through a little bit more of session 2, 3, and 4, and what exactly you're looking to open God's Word with us about in those sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, session number 1 is kind of foundational. I'm going to entitle it "Looking Out for Number One," and that might be a little different than you think of the title. But the second session, we're going to talk just about how 2 are better than 1 in marriage, and really the power of a marriage flips on when a couple recognizes our differences are complementary and they're not to be points of contention. And when I can recognize my own weakness, I'm free to do so and see the complementary strength in my spouse. And when we begin to really put that puzzle together, that's when the power of marriage flips on. And so that'll be session 2, just talking a little bit about that. Um, Session 3 is a split session. My wife is the best preacher in our family,
Yeah.
so the ladies are really going to enjoy that.
Yeah, I feel like every pastor in the country. I told someone on Sunday. They said, "What you preaching on tonight?" I said, "I don't know. My wife hasn't written it yet. Looking forward." No, I'm not just giving him a hard time. I don't know how seriously it took me, but I think every pastor agrees our wives are often the more wiser of the 2, anyways. But yeah, you have a split
Yeah,
session. I know I'm taking your thunder away from you, but you
yeah.
have a split session coming up on that session 3.
Yeah, yeah. So, just for the ladies to hear my wife would be worth the price of admission. So, in that split session, she's going to talk to the ladies just about kind of tailing off of session 2 and about how to really be working complementary way with your husband, and maybe understanding it from a lady's perspective, giving some practical tips about that. I'll be addressing the men on living with your wife in an honorable way and recognizing that and how to really lead. toward unity as a man ought to. And so that'll be the split session. I think it'll be very helpful, practical. And then we're going to end the day with, marriage is filled with two people who are sinners in marriage, and it's going to happen. There are going to be difficulties in marriage. If you see a marriage that looks perfect, you're just seeing it on the surface. There's always things that God teaches us about marriage. And so when those difficult things arise in marriage, whether it be sin issue or weakness issue of character, those kinds of things, what do we do? How do we handle that? And some of that is going to be toward working toward the beauty of marriage, which is the beauty of a transparent marriage, and being safe in my transparency with my spouse, because I know how to give and receive forgiveness. And that'll be a very important part of marriage and understanding how to live together.
Yeah. We're really excited. And one of the things that I think is especially powerful, and why I wanted folks to get to know you and hear you even in advance of their hopefully signing up to register to be at our conference this Sunday, is that you've got a unique life story that lends itself towards the importance of marriage. Number one, you and your spouse moved to an area of the country neither of you grew up in to plant a church and meet those people. But even as you planted that church, no doubt, any strong church that's going to continue to survive and sustain itself and then grow is going to be made up of strong families and strong couples. As a church planting pastor and just a pastor in general, maybe you could speak to the importance of strong homes in establishing a strong church culture. Why is it important that couples are godly as they come to church together, and what effect would that have or should have in a church that's made up of those kind of couples?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's really absolutely essential. The family is the basic discipleship unit that God has ordained. God has ordained the church, but the church is made up of families. And so if you break it down in its basic level, the family is very important just to the health and operation of a church and its contribution. And I think a church is only as healthy as its families. And a lot of that over the years, Pastor Caleb, I've seen really has a lot to do with men who are willing to lead their homes and willing to do so in a humble way, and yet willing to do so in a way that's backed by conviction and not just reaction. And that is over the years has been essential to building a healthy ministry, really just to focus on that most essential of relationships in the marriage relationship, and a strong men leading the way that they should, humbly, but in a way that is by conviction. So that's essential to any church.
Well, we're hopeful that this can be one of those foundational conferences for our ministry, just to be able to pause and talk about the importance of the family and the importance of couples working together for God's kingdom. And your being willing to be a part of that for us is just so incredibly valuable. Just for our listeners and those preparing ahead, Pastor Fagan will also be speaking to us on Sunday morning, September 29th, following that couples conference. We look forward to collecting a love offering for him on that Sunday, as he will be a blessing to us. We hope to be a blessing to him and his family as well. You do have family in town that he's going to get a chance to visit. We were talking beforehand, and I'm thankful that he can do that as well while he's with us here in town. And just as we kind of wrap up, is there any other just important, something that's maybe on your heart as you prepare ahead, whether it be that Sunday sermon or those other conferences, that we can be praying for you and your preparation for those messages, and certainly maybe something that we can be praying for ourselves as we prepare to go to that conference?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would appreciate your prayers as I continue to prepare. I think the best way to prepare, sometimes we come to conferences like this and we think, oh man, I hope he speaks on this because my spouse really needs this. And that's just natural in all of us, right? We tend to see other people, their needs greater than we do our own. And I think the absolute best way to prepare for a couples conference like this is to say, Lord, what do I need to see? Show me myself. Maybe you're in a marriage and it's struggling a little bit, and you're wondering about it, and you're thinking, will this ever be better? And here's a good opportunity. Well, if you change in your marriage, it'll change. even if your spouse doesn't, you're adding something different. And so I think any approach to marriage and this kind of thing always begins with me first. Let me pray about God. What would you have me to see? What are some blind spots that I have that I need to be revealed so that I can please you in this marriage? If every one of you approaches it that way, we're going to have a great weekend together. And I guarantee it'll change your marriage and it'll change your life in the way that you honor God and follow his will.
Well, just for those as you prepare, September 27th, again, is Friday. That's when it begins. Our first time together will be dinner at 7:30, followed by the first session, and then we'll end Saturday, September 28th. There's just for some logistical details, we're at the Wilds in Brevard, North Carolina, which is not too far from here. The three different costs for those that are listening, you can get a lodge or in-room for $200. A duplex cabin is $150. And then if you are unable to be overnight, you'd like to do Friday only or Saturday only, you could join us for those. That would be $70 for the only options of Friday or Saturday only. All of that registration will be open Sunday night, this coming Sunday night, and we do anticipate and are preparing for a groundswell of many people registering right away. There's only so many beds, so it'll be more or less a first come, first serve, so be preparing in advance to go ahead and register for that. But thanks again, Pastor Fagan, for being with me today and kind of introducing yourself, and looking forward to having you at our upcoming couples conference.
Yeah, my pleasure, Caleb. Really looking forward to this. So I'll be excited to see everybody and spend some time with you that weekend.
All right. Well, thank you also for watching, and I trust that this has been informative to you to get to know our speaker that's upcoming at our conference. We hope that you'll register for us, to be with us, rather, at this conference, and we'll talk to you at that time, and we'll be able to be joined by Pastor Fagan at the conference.